I'm Carrie Elston Tunick, and I do video work mostly, but I also make paintings and prints. And the work deals with the collective consciousness. That's how I think about it. It's less about what I'm interested in and more about what people are talking about, thinking about, what has become a concern, basically, or an interest of society. And so my work has focused on politics, sports, pop culture, environmental disasters, the shared experience, really. And it also focuses largely on the emotional experience and how opposing emotions such as love and hate or fear and joy can collapse into one another and feel the same and look the same. And the sort of ambiguity experienced in heightened emotional states. And actually, I was really grateful for this residency because I don't know if I would have been able to keep making art if I didn't have this residency. I was just overwhelmed, really, by the working at home and the young children and the having COVID and not having a studio outside of my home, and all these things kind of collapsed into one another, and it was hard to find mental space really for anything. And having BRIC there sort of pushing me to keep going and to keep thinking about my work, and also having the total flexibility for the work to change. What I ended up making was really different, I think, from what I originally proposed. And actually a big part of that change had to do with the mentorship that BRIC created for me with the artist Paul Pfieffer, who is a legendary video artist, and I was so grateful for the opportunity to work with him. We had these conversations that were really wide-ranging, and we talked I talked about my work, we talked about life and what was happening, and we talked about my full body of work and how I was thinking about it, and he lifted some things up for me there that no one ever had before, and he encouraged me to think about certain things and go in a certain direction that was different from the original proposal I had given to BRIC, but I felt total freedom to go in that direction. And so the mentorship was incredible, and I felt very lucky to have that. And that happened after COVID. And before COVID, I was at BRIC and taking classes there. The residency really helped me with two things, because first I took some classes that were technical classes in Premiere and After Effects, and I'm actually, even though I'm a video artist, I'm kind of low tech, and so having some instruction there about things that I'd always sort of knew I was doing wrong, and it was good to know the right way to do them, because I was just self-taught and had sort of felt it out on my own. So having some real technical instruction was very, very helpful way to start, and then because of COVID and everything changed, I got this really conceptual instruction that was hugely valuable in a totally different way. So actually, for me, having both of those things be part of the residency made it a really complete experience. And then it kind of came full circle. And as I was finishing my piece, my computer started to crash, and I was, I was like, I didn't know if I could even finish it because the tech was not working, and so then BRIC set up a one-on-one session for me with one of their experts, where I just was able to ask really basic questions about how to, I made a really long piece. I think it was almost 48 minutes long, and so how to manage basically a lot of material, taking up a lot of space on your computer, how to export it, smartly, and just to basically handle this really big piece of work in a way that wasn't crashing my technology, which sounds really simple, but it actually is what allowed me to get over the finish line. And so having someone available to support me technically at the very end as I was coming up against some roadblocks was really, really helpful too. So the whole thing, I felt really supported, and it was a really positive experience. The piece that ended up happening is called Long Distance. And I think in my original proposal to BRIC, I had wanted to explore the inner emotional space and how we have so many different things happening in our inner worlds at the same time. You know, we're like frustrated at work, and, you know, we miss our kids, and we're stressed about money or whatever it is. It's like so many different things always happening, running through your head at the same time that are unrelated, but they all come together in your mental space. And I think that I wanted, that was originally how I planned to approach the work. And then when COVID happened, I was thinking a lot about how our relationships to one another had obviously shifted emotionally, but physically, and how the relationship to the body had shifted. And this tension between like yearning for the physicality of other people, which we couldn't have anymore, and also fear around the physicality of other people. And, you know, people were a threat. Everyone was a threat to each other. So I was thinking a lot about how our approach to our own bodies and each other's bodies had changed. And then when I actually started making the piece, I wanted to capture this moment. I almost thought of it like a time capsule, like this really, really unique moment where like all the normal concerns and stresses and priorities that I just described are present, but so are all these other new things that are, you know, we're in the midst of like a social reckoning, you know, with how we treat each other, and with like racism in the world that, you know, we haven't actually dealt with at all, it turns out. And, you know, this huge economic crisis, and we have a pandemic, and we had a really fraught presidential election, and, you know, our relationships to our families are changing because we're with them all the time, and some of us got sick and lost people. And there was a lot of sadness, I think, this year, and loneliness for a lot of people. And then throughout it, you know, there were just the mundane moments and the moments of happiness, and life actually just went on in its weird normal way in this highly irregular moment. So I wanted to make a piece that dealt with all of those things. And so the piece that ended up happening, I've described often this moment for myself personally, and also just collectively, as it's felt like a marathon to me, like this really, really long thing that has a lot of pain embedded in it, and also, you know, there's no clear ending. And so, I mean, for me personally, when I know when something's going to end, even if it's a really long, difficult thing, it makes it easier to bear. But the not knowing is part of, I think, what's so difficult here. So I wanted to use a run to frame this. And so I went through a lot of different runs. I actually looked at marathons, but marathons are actually really positive, and everyone's cheering each other on, and it's a collective shared thing. And I decided I wanted it to be a solitary run, I think for obvious reasons. And some of the solitary runs I looked at were beautiful and sunny. I should say my work is all appropriation based, and so when I make a video, a lot of it is a research project where I'm just looking and gathering, you know, 10 or 20 different videos that are all about the same thing, and then I, you know, pick the one that I think is most suited to the work. So I settled on this run that was a solitary run through a kind of nondescript landscape in the woods, and it was foggy and kind of dark, and that felt suited to me. So I picked the run, and I Also, picked this little, there's one, it's a bunch of videos layered on top of each other, and one is a little rainbow that's always in the corner of the screen, and it changes, and sometimes it sort of fades very much, and sometimes it's very bright and present. And well, for me personally, the rainbow was actually my children, who are like love rainbows, and it's, they're at that age. And it's also this icon, of happiness that's easily recognizable. And it also is something that I think truly when people see a rainbow, they feel happiness because it feels special, it feels magical. So I put this little rainbow in the video because I wanted to represent this continuity of happiness and joy that it was, in there, even if to just a little degree throughout, this weird experience of this year. And then I wanted to address COVID in a direct way, and I, wasn't sure how to do that. And I was thinking of what are the symbols of COVID, obviously the mask, but I didn't want to use the mask. And I thought about using the refrigerator trucks that I had seen, that you see on the news, especially in the beginning, as the symbol of how many people were dying. And I started to look at, and I wanted to make sort of a geometric montage of these trucks. But as I was looking at the trucks, actually all the trucks had bodies going in and out of them, all the ones that I found. And then that became more interesting to me, was all these bodies, because you never actually see the bodies. They're all wrapped up in sheets or bags, and it looks almost like trash, like just, being dumped on a truck or dumped in a hole or whatever. And, that's disconcerting to see bodies treated that way. And it was also strange to know that they were there, but never to see them. And they were weirdly amorphous. It was kind of just like a white sheet with a shape, but not a clear shape. And so there's this whole other video embedded into the run of basically bodies that have died from COVID in these bags being put on and off of trucks. And the color changes in that. One thing that interests me is how we aestheticize difficult imagery, and whether it's imagery of people dying or of earthquakes or whatever it is, like we mostly don't experience it in person, we experience it on the news or through media. So, my whole knowledge of the fact that there were refrigerator trucks with bodies being put into them was because I watched the news. So I often will color and distort imagery that I get from the news to sort of highlight how distorted it already is. And then the fourth element of the video is this sound, and which was a new element to my work, because my work is usually non-narrative and you can enter it and exit it at any point and it doesn't really matter. In this piece, the sound clip I found, it was actually a tape that had been found in a dumpster and uploaded onto a website. And it's a tape of this woman who is supposedly in a relationship, and she and her lover have agreed to send each other tapes of, just speaking to each other, mostly about their love for each other, and about other things.
And thinking of you, besides the fact that I think of you always, but so that I have a couple of things to work on tonight. Oh.
What was so interesting to me about this, well, there were two things. One was that it's completely one-sided. Her partner is you never hear him. And so as it goes on, and it goes on and on, you wonder actually if this is even a real relationship, or if she's imagining it or whatever. I mean, and the other thing that struck me was how vulnerable she gets. She's very, very revealing and intense about her feelings for this man. And she goes really deep into that, to an unusual degree, I think, without getting anything back from the person. So it was a really unique incredibly exposed, I think, sound clip of an individual and their feelings. And so to me, it spoke to, it just captured a relationship right now, and I think many of us are questioning our relationships. Many relationships have become long distance. I think when, like, in some ways they're long distance, in other ways people's relationships are collapsed and magnified because they're spending a lot more time together. And I think people are evaluating their relationships, examining what's real, what's not. Relationships, especially romantic ones, are very difficult and complicated. And so this was just a very revealing look into one side of a relationship that may or may not have been real.
I'll be with you tonight. I am so with you right now. I am there. I am so with you. And you are here.
So that ambiguity was interesting to me, and I wanted to bring that sort of personal, familial or romantic aspect into this work. So that was the fourth element. And so the four videos are all in one space together and existing simultaneously. And so in that sense, I think the piece ended up being sort of what my original proposal to BRIC was, about all these different parts of your internal emotional life colliding in your mental space. But it ended up also being very specifically about this unusual year and what I think we are collectively experiencing as we go through it as individuals.
I want to be yours.
I want to say thank you to BRIC. I think it was really, really helpful to me to have this residency going on this year. I felt so proud, actually, that I was able to complete anything. And what I completed was really different and exciting for me. So I just thank BRIC for giving me that opportunity, and I really enjoyed it.